150 students. And because you find a class with 150 students, you find that these 150 students, not all of them can express themselves. So you find students who are growing up who cannot express themselves. And if just a few brilliant ones are able now to express themselves. Now, when you are in your house with only 3 or 4, make sure that you are teaching them self-expression. You want them to speak up. You want them to be assertive. When you have something you are talking about, you need to ask them, what do you think? And then encourage them to give a response. Don't just say if somebody is just keeping quiet and say these are adolescents, they don't want to talk. Encourage them to talk. Tell them that you are proud of them. Tell them that they mean the world to you. Tell them that if they are going to mean the world to you, they cannot just continue being empty, but they need to develop certain skills. They need to develop certain values. They need to develop a level of excellence that will help them to succeed in this world. And so that's why even Dr. Ruth was talking about discipline. Show them certain things that this world they are not taught at school, but you need to teach them. Teach them that in this world, sometimes people will say no. And so don't say yes, yes all the time. Say no, even when you would want to say yes. Let us see how they respond in case of disappointment. Teach them housework. Let them mop the house. Let them wash the dishes. Let them do the work that they don't want to do. Don't allow them to sleep because they have been away. Don't allow them to sleep up to 9 o'clock and then they are sleeping even at midday. That is terrible, because a little sleep, a little slumber, a little folding of hands to rest, so shall your poverty come like a bandit. That scripture is repeated in Proverbs 3 times, meaning that it is true. And so you need to teach them. They wake up early, they go to bed early, because we used to say early to bed, early to rise makes a man healthy, wealthy, and wise. Teach them, these children, that if you don't teach them how to ask for help. This is a skill. There are certain people who don't know how to ask for help. And the schools nowadays do not teach us how to ask for help. Sometimes you might think that the only way, what you are expected of in the world is that you have to say you know everything, but sometimes there comes a time when we don't know everything. And we just need to know how to ask our elders. We need to ask the people around us for help. So teach them how to ask for help. It teach them, there were these good words that we were taught. Excuse me. Yes, sir. Yes, madam. Please. Those words that are sweet and that are expected of you. Teach them. I'm thinking about let them have fun. You create some fun moments with them, and you need to teach them maybe how to do a timetable for the day. And in the timetable, teach them, do a timetable with them. And in that timetable, allow for work, but allow also for play. Because in most of our schools, they have taken away all the times that those children used to use for playing. And so they are developing maybe intellectually, and I'm using the word maybe because I doubt, but also they are neglecting, for example, spiritual growth. And I have talked about spiritual growth, but they're also neglecting motor growth. The hands, can those children use their hands? Can they use their legs? Are they growing physically? And so we need to make sure that we have activities in our routine which are building up our children to be able to grow physically. Let us go out, encourage them to go out, let them not oversleep, let them go out, maybe join in with them, play tepo. People don't know how to play tepo anymore. They don't even know what tepo means. Play tepo with them. Tepo, for those who don't know what tepo means, it means hide and seek. And then play with them, sing with them. Even if you don't know how to sing, do fun activities as a family. together. And then one of the other things is that challenge them to learn how to debate, ask them certain tough questions, ask them about their sexuality. Don't fear to ask them about their sexuality. Find out what they know. Some of them, what they know about the sexuality is not what we expect that they know. Don't fear. Don't leave the school to teach your children about sexuality, but let the message that you pass on to them be age appropriate. And so for a 6-year-old, you need to see how to package this. But those children are now far more exposed than they used to be, than we used to be. For us, we are BBC, born before computers. These ones are after computers. And so find out what they know and correct any problem. Talk to them about bullying. When you see that your child is quitting and is no longer as confident, find out what has happened at school, whether there are certain big girls or big boys that have been playing and the campaigning. I was told yesterday of a story, a wonderful story. There was I think she passed on, but she used to be a good writer in the New Vision. Brilliant woman. She went to Budo. And when she went to Budo, for those who went to Budo, the boys were far more than the girls. And so in the class, when I was in class at Budo, in our class, senior 1, were a total of 45 people. And out of the 45, only 9 were girls. And out of the 9, as young boys, we would think that out of the 9, maybe we have 1 or 2 beautiful girls that we would have wanted to be our girlfriends. And so the rest of the girls, people would do, some boys, ill-mannered boys, would call them ugly. And sometimes in our time, they would call them leopards. And so they would say, look at this leopard. And they would call them ugly names, and they would call him bad things, Budonians. And also for the boys, because the girls were too few, most of the boys, the Budonians, did not grow the social skill of interacting with girls. And so most of the boys, the Budonians, people would say Budonians are proud, but they are not proud. I think they did grow in the emotions of social emotions. They did grow socially. And so most Budonians do not know how to interact around the people, either the opposite sex or people who are less fortunate than they are. It is a deficiency in the school system. And so for this young girl, when she went to Budo, people called her bad names. They told her she was ugly. And so when she went back home during the holidays, the dad saw the girl, and the girl was depressed. The girl was not her normal self. And then the dad said, what is wrong, my dear? And the girl started crying. And she said, people at school told me I'm ugly. And she was crying. And she was saying, they are saying I'm ugly. And so the dad sat around. And when he sat around, he said, now you tell me, my dear, who do people say you look like? And then the daughter said, people say I look like you. And so the dad asked the daughter, so you think I am ugly? And so the person said, no, you are not ugly. Dad, you are not ugly. And that was the end of the story. And the girl became happy again. And the girl became very well motivated again. And the girl was full of herself. And she died a conqueror. She died a very confident woman. And so take time to interact with your girls, with your boys. What is it that the children at school have told her that have brought her esteem, self-esteem down? You need to correct that. You need to show that, friends, if you are a lady, you need to take the boy child out. Take the boy child and dine with them and talk to them and teach them how to go out with a lady and how to handle a lady. If you're a man, take the girl child out and make her feel special this holiday season. And after you have done that, you could also then take the boys taking the boys and the mummies taking the girls out, so that you can balance them and you can help them to grow in a very balanced manner. And the child, if the boy knows how to handle their mother and they can handle them well, you can be sure that when they grow up, they will be able to handle their wives very well. And for the boy, if they know, if for the boys, if they handle their moms, they'll handle the wives. And for the girls, if they know how to handle their dads very well, they'll be able to handle their husbands very well. So friends, there are so many things that we can talk about, but the message that I have here is that let us think about those things that the current education system is not giving to our children. And then let us try to come up with the strategies on how we can fill up the missing gaps, how we can be able to fill up that which is missing from amongst our children, so that the children can then grow up to have a very balanced experience at our home. Friends, the responsibility to parent is not a responsibility of teachers. The responsibility to parent is a responsibility for you as parents. I can see that our speaker has come, Reverend Richard. Can the host make Reverend Richard a co-host so that Reverend Richard can speak to us? Whoever is host, please let us do it. Thank you so much. May the good Lord bless you.
Wow, thank you, Professor John, for those wise words. Teaching children life skills, the things that are not soft skills, the things that are normally not taught at school. So, Grace, are you on? Let's welcome our speaker.
Yes,
thank you so much.
I'm Reverend Rukundo.
Reverend Rukunda, I had already introduced
you.
Yes, I had already introduced you.
Yes.
And we want to thank God that you've been able to make it. Please go ahead.
I've been able to make it. Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you. And I was very glad to join in when Doctor was talking about the realities of what happens. I am very, very glad that he was able to open us up, and I hope you listened in as well. It's so true that some of those things he says actually of their days in Budo could still be happening. I know many young people who still go through a lot of those comments, and they affect them mentally, and their self-esteem is so low. So I believe that that's very true. We need to as well continue to talk about that. Today I was thinking about us talking a little bit about the holiday and some of the things that you would need to ask. As a teacher, I usually tell parents that the best education in life is not what we learned at school. It's actually the things that our parents taught us. And I know that many of you may experience that the things that actually you've had, even when you get a job, it's always about character, it's always about punctuality, it's always about cleanliness, it's always about being faithful, it's being about the things that actually we all call etiquette, values, and those are things that actually we learn a lot more from home. And so oftentimes when parents come, we come for holiday, and I know that many of us as parents also attempted sometimes to take our children to school back, or let's get an activity for them to be busy. Let's do what? I want to say that even as we continue to talk about holiday, my prayer is that we will continue to look at the things that can take us away from the things that actually school is offering. Because if school is giving us academics, we are already stressed out of it. If school is giving us work to be done, that usual, if we can try to do the opposite of what happens at school, it's very, very helpful. Away from the classroom experiences, what are the experiences at home? Is it cooking? Is it going to a farm together? Is it going to the shop where you actually work from once in a while? Is it the things that, for example, house chores that we need to learn from? Is it the things that we actually every day live with, cooking and learning how to do things? Those are very helpful in the holiday, especially as we get bearing parents and trying to do what we don't do. I can assure you, many of us, especially in this generation, the school curriculum is so pressing and demanding. Thank God for the new changes in the secondary curriculum, but most of the, especially secondary primary school, is still very stressful. Many of the young people come from, by the time they are very stressed. It's a lot of work. And so if we can look at the opportunities of what we can give our children, that's very, very encouraging as well. But also I want to talk about a little bit about the communication that somehow the doctor has also mentioned. At home, of course, we have an opportunity to listen to each other, and parents will listen to us and also want to listen to them. And usually as a teacher, I always say, and as a parent, I always say, listen and listen and listen. It's always true that most of us as parents, we have the answers. Of course, the questions are always going to be, what they want to ask. My son recently was, remember, I want to go to this camp in this. I said, okay, I had first listen carefully. So why do you want to go to this camp? Because, and I'm like, okay, no, I think for me it's no. But oftentimes the interaction that we have as parents is to listen with already an answer. You know what your no is or no they know, and it's already clear why are you asking this question. So you're listening in, but you already have an answer which is saying a no. I want to encourage you as parents to learn to listen. Young people have many things they want to tell you. And oftentimes as parents, we are busy, we've come from office, maybe you have even had a lot of work stress, and the temptation of you not to listen is very true. I want to encourage you as parents to listen, and listen. Even when you know the answer immediately, take some time to listen. The moment they get to know that we are able to listen, it's a very helpful tip for a parent to know that you can actually take some time to listen. I also get tempted sometimes to want to answer immediately. And I know many of us do come out of the day and there's lots of stress. You want to know to listen. But if you can create an opportunity for you to be able to have them talk to you and you can listen, sometimes it looks very nonsense. Sometimes the answers are very obvious, but you can take some time to listen. And then the other thing I say is attend. Attend to what they have to do with you. Oftentimes the temptation for us to be busy the whole day and come back late and not be able to see what they've done or be even able to tell them what they're going to do is true. I was sharing in my household this week about how we need to leave chores and what you're going to do and say, please, when the day starts, you're going to be able to do this, you're going to be able to do this, you're going to be able to do this. And usually as parents, I always say, it's good for you to take some time to say, have they even done it? And if they've not done it very well, you want to attend to them and say, okay, this is what I expected you to do actually. This is how I expected you to do it. Before you can get angry and bitter, I told you to do this, you didn't do it. It's also going to be I'll attend to what the things that you actually need them to be able to. And I know again, as parents, the temptation to be busy, to have a hectic day, and not attend to the things that you should be able to do with them is also true. But before we look at the things they've not done or the things they're supposed to do, let's see whether we can take some time to attend, be able to be with them, and see that you do with them. And even, for example, those who are doing farm, those who are doing away from the home chores, you're going to do, if you go there and do it with them and get some time to hands-on together, it makes a big difference. So daddy does it, mommy does it, he's always there with us, always doing it for us together. If it is a home chore and you can do it together, let's try to attend with them. And by doing that, you're also building a culture of trust in them, but also helping them to learn what they don't know yet. But also the other thing that we mentioned is the repeat. As parents, often I always say, let's not get tired of repeat what you've said. You say it, and then you say it again, and then you say it again, and then you hear again there. Please, I said this, and please let's keep saying it again. We need to be more able to be able to repeat. And I get also temptation of sometimes saying, I've never said it before. I've said it again to you. Please, let's be able to say it again and repeat it to them. And that's very important. The other thing is to asking questions. I don't know how many of us as parents will take some time to ask our children questions, asking questions of how they've had the holiday, what was at school, who their best friend are, what are the things they have actually had and known. And I'll be talking a little bit about the questions that we ask. But asking is also a very good tip for a parent in the holiday to get to know what they want to know. So what is it that it is? How do you do this? How do the question that you do? And many young people would like to ask us, but I also say it's okay for you to also as well ask them, just to know how they do. Because as parents, often we know everything, or maybe they actually assume that we know everything. But actually, young people sometimes know everything, know some things, and they do not want to tell us because they know you already know the answers, so they're not going to ask you. So I always say to parents, it's a good tip for you to be able to ask questions. So how would you have done it? What happened? How would you do? I gave a story some time back. I don't know, some people have listened to the story of a little girl in P6 who came to me, and she had been in a boarding school. She had just gone to boarding school. And so she comes and says, I've come back and I'm so excited. I'm like, oh, welcome back from the boarding. How was boarding school? And we actually talk about the school, how it was. So she tells me, and I ask, what was the best subject? The best subject was English. And I saw him like, math is not very good for her. Okay, so what happens when you don't do math very well? I have this friend who helps me. Oh, that's good. So is this friend a girl or a boy? Oh, a boy. Okay, so what time does he help you? When others have left. I'm like, oh, okay, he must be a good friend of yours. Okay, he helps you. So, okay, so how do you do to give? Do you appreciate him? Does he get money from you, or he's just happy to do it for free? Yeah, sometimes he just gives me a hug. And actually, that story was ending in the fact that actually that boy and that girl, despite the fact that they were discussing math, they were actually having some things going on together. And I don't think the parent at home could ever find out that. But because I was able to ask, how happened at school? What's the best subject? The hard subject, how do you get over it? Who helps you? What time they help you? The small, simple questions actually led me to understand that actually this girl is already having a boy who, when they are having math, they actually begin touching. And I said, that actually can be dangerous for you and for everybody. So it began talking about, and it became very clear that now this was not just a discussion that happened between the two, it's actually something that they need to actually be more careful about. But I don't think that anybody adult at home would easily find out because no one was asking the questions. So asking is very, very important for us as parents to be able to ask. And then the other thing I said, don't judge. I know of, and as Doctor was sharing the story of the girl who comes at home and she's just traumatized by the situation at school because they're calling her ugly and all kinds of names. And I know of a parent who actually said, when the girl said, the teacher was trying to do, he said, of all people, it's you. Of all people, it's always you and it's easy for us as adults to judge. And I always say to parents, another tip is don't judge. Don't come to conclusions quickly. You don't know what's going on in their lives. Maybe they're actually being bullied, maybe something to do. So before you judge them, about why are you the one who always has to have that problem? Are you the one who always, before we make a judgment for them, let's first find out what is it. Before we criticize them, let's first listen, what is it? What is it? And it can take some days, even some weeks, some try and find out the more story. But before you make a judgment of this little young person who has come to you and they're telling you something, even at home, even when you leave them to do something and come and say, I told you to do something. And quickly you girl, I tell you all the time. And I forget the temptation sometimes to feel like, you know what, let's just you boy. But I'm like, okay, before I judge it, let me first listen. What is it exactly? What happens? And that's a skill we need to learn as parents. It's a very good tip in the holiday. Try and listen, but also not judge quickly. Try and before we let's first know what is it. Why is it even that they can't do this? Maybe actually they have a problem. Maybe they have a challenge or they're faced with something. Or maybe when you're not there, something happens at home that makes them even fail to do what they're supposed to do. So let's not be quick to judge. Let's not be quick to criticize them. And the other part I want to say was understand. Show that you are trying to understand how they feel. Sometimes I imagine that parent who took that girl was a lovely parent who said, look at me. Do I look like you? Do I look ugly? We're trying to understand what exactly it comes from. And I know that many of the young people sometimes are faced with situations which they feel are too complex in their lives. But, you're trying to understand them in their context. Why are they being called ugly? What's happening at school? What are they not doing? Maybe what everybody's doing. And the context of the young people which they live in today, some of them have phones, some come from families where they are having lots of things that are happening on. So we try to understand what's going on that's not happening. And I know with our parents, we may not be able to match them to everybody, but we're trying to say who they are, they can be able to stand strong and defend themselves as what we are. And say, God, you're made in God's image. You're able to be strong, you're able to stand out. And that girl left out when she was a blessing and able to walk and say, my dad calls me beautiful. And so no one should call me ugly. And so when you understand them and understand why they call, I hear many times the young people telling me stories from school. I'm like, why is that happening? Daddy, you may not understand this one. But I'm trying to say, okay, let me understand it because in my times, maybe in our generation, that wasn't the thing. But in their time, that's like a big thing. Like it makes a big difference. I'm like, really? That's not serious. That shouldn't be a big problem. But for them, it's a big issue. So sometimes trying to understand, and it's very, very helpful in helping getting time with them And as we talk about tips during this holiday, I hope those ones the tips you can take. I want just to repeat them quickly. One is listen as much as possible. Attend with them or be there with them as much as possible. Repeat what you have said. Try and repeat it again so they can be able to hear. They're able to do it again. Don't be tired of repeating what you said again and again. And then ask questions, ask leading questions, ask questions where they can be able to share more and more. You will find out more things that they wouldn't tell you in normal circumstances, but because of the questions you're leading, you're asking them. The other thing is don't be quick to judge. Avoid judging them quickly, but also try to understand. Their times are different, their generations are different. So we're trying to understand them in the context of where they are and what they're going through. So I want just to make some tips on communication. As we communicate to them, we're talking about what happens to them at home, at school. Of course, we're also asking about the things that they've happening at school, because remember that at school, they've had lots of things sometimes where you're not there, you've not even had everything completely. But as they listen to you, then you're going to help them understand some of the things that they actually have gone through at school. They are faced by their teachers, by their friends, by their colleagues, and they haven't yet told them to you. So at home as well, is to ask how the day was. Those are simple questions, how their day was. And remember, many of those parents are not always there during the day. But when you come back, you're creating a relationship with them and say, how was your day? Does anything bother you when you are here at home, when I'm not here? And I know many of us have house helpers, have relatives staying with us, have neighbors. You don't know sometimes what happens at home. There's no harm with you asking, so what bothers when you're at home? How is it? Does anything bother you when I'm not here? When you're not at home, is home okay? What makes you happy? What makes you sad? Yes, it's a home environment and they want to share with you, and it's good to ask about that. But then when it comes to school as well, there's no harm with you asking how school was, how the teachers treat them, how they relate with other classmates and their friends, what makes them happy or sad at school, and they can be able to open up as well. It can also be something to do with the activities they do, what they enjoy doing in their free time, and what are their hobbies. Some of us as parents, of course, we maybe know what they like, and maybe we don't know necessarily what their hobbies are. And there are some of them developing hobbies. They're not totally there. They are beginning to be what they are discovering who they are. So they're trying to be. And I know that the temptation for parents to say, I know in my family, it's been one of those things. We play instruments, so they have to learn instruments. We sing, so they have to do this. So, but sometimes they are not gifted into that, or maybe they want to do something else. But I can say, help them to know that they have gifts and they have hobbies and what are the things they love doing at school or they found their friends. And then also, what are the ways do you think that you can be able to contribute to home? Sometimes I think the assumption that parents that we have is that we will be able to tell them what to do. And I think they feel like they don't have a contribution to do from themselves. It's always good challenging to say, okay, what contribution would you want to do when you're at home? What are the things you'd like to do when you're here? Apart from watching TV or spending time on phone or Google, what are the things you're going to be doing now? And challenge them. Okay, let's write them down. So while you're here in this holiday, and it's one way of saying, okay, you're developing your skills, but also learning to be able to be useful at home and contribute to the well-being of home. And I know many of us in our homes, there's internet, there's TV, there are many of the gadgets which are happening, and those can be very attractive oftentimes, and they take a lot of their time. But you want to ask them, do they really contribute to the well-being of the home? For example, if they did something that contributes to all of us in the family, it's a good thing that we all can be able to benefit from what the activities at home are, they benefit all of us. And we get to know what their normal days are and what we would like them to do. And then, of course, talk about substances. As a specialist now in clinical psychology, these days I get to tell parents that we get surprised that children are sometimes introduced to drugs. I have been having a hostel near me here, and it was surprising to find some little girls, 6 girls, all smoking. And those are not girls who you can even expect that their parents know or would guess that they smoke, but they are on drugs, they are smoking. And these are little beautiful girls coming from well-affluent homes. But imagine they're already learning how to smoke. So if just questions like, have you heard of some young people who are on drugs or what they use? Or have you heard about it even at school? And I want to say that even some of our schools, actually, there are drugs there. We can't say they are not there at all. Some of the students are using drugs. The teachers may not know. The school administrators may not even know. But the students sometimes sneak the drugs in. So we want to find out even from the young people that we have at home. Are they even aware that there are drugs? Are there some friends of theirs whom they know who use drugs? What do they think about those drugs? And what happens? Have you ever used them yourself? Is this something that you've tried out? And I now realize that these questions are normal, especially if you work with people like we do in the setting of the clinical psychologist. Well, you find that now they're normal. I've actually these days I'm even asking people about suicidal tendencies, which I never used to ask at all. But sometimes as parents, keeping those young people to know what is going on in their world would also help you to know where there could be a problem. And sometimes the schools could be actually having them, no one knows, or their friends actually are using drugs and no one has even discovered. So just trying to find out from them about what they know about drug use and alcohol, and whether they have friends who use them, whether they know of someone who has been affected by drugs. And you can hear the stories. And that will help you as a parent make a judgment, whether that school actually where the child is the best place or not. And during this holiday is the best time for you to catch up. You may hear stories from schools. You may have been told this school is having this problem, this is happening, but we need to take some time as well as parents to actually find out and be able to know. Then the other aspect that I know that Dr. mentioned is sexuality. Sexuality is very true. Many of the young people now are exposed to videos that we never used to know. The internet is now exposing everybody. Many of the schools even have young people who are sexually active. And that's very true. As a teacher, as a children's worker, I've gone to schools. I know sexuality is happening in schools, many forms of sexuality as well. Some of them in homosexuality, many things that are happening. So take some time to also ask them, has anyone ever asked you to be their girlfriend, be their boyfriend? That's a simple question, but it doesn't come easily. Has anyone ever asked to be his girlfriend or boyfriend? And then when they can say, okay, have you been involved before with a person or a relationship, or love relationship is there? And they'll be able to open. And if you're asking them, please ask them in a very friendly way, because if they know that you're too serious and that is always tough, they may never answer the question, or they know already your answer. But they joke, the times when the things are very happy, that's when I bring them up. I say, oh, okay, so does any of you have a boy girlfriend? Oh, so and so has a friend, a girl who's very good, close to them. Oh, okay. It's okay, they're good friends, are just good friends, or they have anything that goes on beyond. Do they always move together? Are they ever doing things that have? So what shows that they're in love? Such questions lead to understanding whether they're actually having affairs with some people. And then the questions like, have some friends of yours been involved in sexual activity? You know of friends? By the way, sometimes I find the young people can tell you about their friends, but not about themselves. Or even they can tell you a story about themselves using their friends. I have a friend, she has a boyfriend, and this boy, they're over together. Actually, that could be herself, but she knows she cannot say it's me. So she will say, my friend has a boy, this boy is always there, they are doing this. And actually, sometimes it is themselves. It would take me a long time sometimes to know actually this girl, one of the young people would come and tell me the story about her friend all the time. My friend is doing this, my friend. Sometimes I'm like, okay, but this friend of yours, just tell me a little bit about, why are you very bothered about this friend of yours? Tell me about yourself first. And actually I got to know that this person was the very one telling the story about herself, but she would use her friend. So sometimes parents, let's just get to find out whether it's them or it's their friends. You know of someone, is it your friend? They may not tell you that it is themselves, but they may tell you it is their friend. And they may tell you the story about their friend, and finally say, okay, tell me about yourself then. So what advice did you give them? What was it about you? How come you got to know? How come this friend is telling you? And then you get to know whether it's actually their friend. And when you ask them those questions, finally, you will find to know that it's not just their friend, they may as well be involved in something. And of course, the other thing that I mentioned about is suicidal tendencies. It's true that many young people sometimes have suicidal tendencies. And now as a clinical psychologist in practice, I am now realizing it is very true. And there's no harm with asking about it. Ask young people about how they feel about their life. If they feel sad or useless or stressed. And I know I have had this from many young people saying, I am stressed all the time. I am feeling useless. Sometimes it's because even us at home, we tell them things about how they are not performing very well, they are not achieving, they are not meeting targets. And that can cause the young person to actually feel useless, and that can stress them. And those stress can lead to more deeper feelings of feeling like maybe they shouldn't leave, maybe they should do something more. So you can ask about how a person, how you are a person important. You feel like we tell you something that's important. You feel proud about yourself. Do we feel like mommy pleasures you? You feel like daddy loves you? What are the things that they do that you feel like, have you ever felt life is worthless? Do you ever feel like you have a meaning of life? What are the things and I get surprised now that I asked the young person, when they told me their story, I'm like, okay, so have you ever felt like useless or felt like worthless? I say, yeah, all the time. I'm okay. So does it make you feel like doing something? Yeah, I can even commit suicide if I had opportunity to. It comes easily like that. And sometimes they can even tell you something you don't expect that they are even feeling about themselves. If for me, I could die and leave this world, if I could, this one is trying to make it. And sometimes you even take us deep and say, okay, have you even tried it? Someone will tell you, yeah, I've tried. My friends told me you can take this medicine or you can do this and more. And those are things sometimes as friends they discuss, as 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 neighbors, as people who are close to them, they may have discussed. And this one may be thinking about it all the time. So there's no harm with you asking as a parent the suicidal tendencies in their lives, but starting with the simple questions of how sad they feel, how useless they feel, how stressed sometimes they be, the meaningfulness of life to them, how they feel proud of themselves, how important they are to you as a mom, as a dad. All those are very helpful for them. The other thing that I mentioned as a child protection officer is because safety, how they feel safe at home, at school. Many young people are not safe, and sometimes it could be that people you even think are close to them. It can be even relatives, it can be friends, it can be neighbors. So I always tell parents, please be careful that the children that you have are able to even share themselves about safety, because safety is now a big issue, and it can even be in homes, especially now we know from COVID, we actually learned that homes are more unsafe than even school. So we say it is no harm for you to ask about how safe they feel when they're at home or maybe at school. I know of young people now who prefer to stay at school because at home they don't feel safe. And I know even as a children's pastor, many young people would come and say, we have a cousin at home. This cousin all the time is disturbing me. And and it's so serious. And at home, they don't think it's very serious. But these relatives that come and stay with us, these sometimes maids, sometimes helpers. It's very important for you to know that children are safe when they're at home. And you can ask something about how they feel threatened or are they beaten. And sometimes I even get to know that children are beaten at school and they don't want to tell you. And it's been sad. My children went to a Christian school all the time. I thought there was no beating. Until sometimes I found actually they were beaten, and sometimes they would be even threatened. And that happens a lot of times in schools. They may not even mention it to you, but it happens by their friends, sometimes by people who they may think if they mention it to you, then you'll tell the teacher will beat them more. And that can be serious, and they're there and they're traumatized about it. The other question you can ask about, has anyone touched you or tried to force you into sexual activity? And those are questions that actually these days we shouldn't be scared to ask as parents, because I can tell you young people are faced with a lot of abuses, and sometimes abuses by their teachers, by their friends, by everybody. So there's no harm with you asking about that. It could even be a fellow boy. The boys these days can be even harassed by very boys who are homosexuals. I have seen that, old boys, young little boys. So there's no harm with even thinking this is a boy, I should not ask them. No, ask them, has anyone tried to force you to something? And they will tell you yes, or even I know someone who has been. And then you can tell them, did you tell anyone about your sad experience? If they had a sad experience, it's good to know that they've told someone, or they're actually able to share it at school, at home. Anyone, you say, okay, sometimes I've actually had young people say, I couldn't tell my mom, but I can tell my dad. I cannot tell this one, I can tell. They'll say, okay, fine. You wouldn't want to tell me. Can you tell someone else? And please let follow the children if they say they can't tell you as a mom, as a dad, because they know how you react. And I know sometimes children are very scared of us because they know our reactions. They know our fears, they know our anxieties, and they know we have pressure. So they're even scared of telling us some things that they know are very serious. So you'd say a bit quiet. You say, oh, would I let someone you can talk to? That's why counselors are there. That's why helpers are there. So you can be able to get someone who the child can open up to. If you say something and you realize they're not willing to tell you everything, there's no harm with you getting someone who's more professional. Say, please talk to them. So in these tips that we're talking about today, I was trying to mention things about how we can be able to communicate, especially in the holiday. It's a wonderful time to bond with our children. It's a wonderful time to pray with them, read the Bible with them, encourage them in the Christian walk. But as well, let's be real to them in terms of being home and knowing how they feel when they're at home and how they can be useful at home in learning things. What happens at school, the times that they are not with them and they are away from home and they're at school, what is going on? What are their friends doing? What is happening to them? It can be activities that they can be able to do. And they have a mind as well. They would like to contribute. They would like to know that you treasure their ideas. There's no harm with asking them what they would like to do. What are the things that make them happy, make them able to feel like they are part of the family and they are contributing. And lastly, I know that I've mentioned this to the parents. that there's no harm with us parents as well, opening up to the struggles that we go through. If you have a struggle together, financial, and they know, I was telling my own testimony of how when I would go to school, I would be able to even spend some weeks in the school without paying because my parents would have no money. And I had a way to tell the school administration that they knew that I can be able to stay longer. But when sometimes I think the parents don't tell us total about their problems or what they're going through, financial strains, challenges going on at home, or everything, death, sicknesses, those are normal, they happen. But this time, try and see how we open up to us and say, by the way, mommy has not been well, daddy has not been fine, or we have had this challenge. So when they go at home and they're at school and they need for financial strain, they know that at home things are not fine. And as parents, as children, they know how to adjust. And they will know how to talk to the teachers, talk to their friends, and remind what they have. But when we know that is always having, and we're struggling to even give us the full requirements, we don't understand. We're like, why is he not giving us everything? He has the money. Even when you have no job with this, we don't understand. But I keep telling parents, there's no harm with you being open to children and sharing what's going on at home. If there's a challenge they need to know, this is time for you to bond up with them, open up with them about the challenge they need to go, pray about it together, let them know that, yes, there's a financial strain, there's a challenge with this. You're trying to make sure that you go through it, you want them to be happy, you want them to grow fine, you want them to continue with academics well, but there's a struggle. And that struggle, you can pray about it together. When they're not with you, they know that there's a struggle. Otherwise, I see a generation of young people who are always expecting parents to give them everything. Daddy, give me, send me, you have not come to visit me. That, and I'm like, but sometimes the parents are going through struggles, but the children don't seem to understand that there's a struggle at home. Because for them, it is the life they must have, successful and everything looking nice, and everything is okay. And not necessarily that everything is always fine. Sometimes things are not always okay. So I always encourage parents that it's no harm for you to be honest at home in this time when you're together as family, to share about the challenges we've faced and pray about them, continue to grow together so that yes, we are family and they understand what we're going through. Otherwise, with those tips, I hope that we can conclude on that. I didn't know how much time I had, but I would like that I stop here for today. God bless you.
Wow. Thank you. Thank you so much, Reverend. Thank you so much. It has been a power-packed session, lots of wisdom, a lot of wisdom shared with us. Some of the things that you have taught us, one is about communication. How do you communicate to them? Ask them, how are they doing? How was their day? How do they experience life when you're not there? Involve them in hobbies. Let them know how they can contribute to the home. Talk to them about drugs. Talk to them about sexuality. Ask them these suicidal tendencies that happen around. Ask them how they feel about life and how they value themselves. Do they feel stressed? Some of those could be red flags that we could think about. Talk to them about safety. Some of them may not feel very safe at home. Find out what are those things that make them feel unsafe. You talked about the things that you talked about, attend to them, listen to them. Don't judge, don't be judgmental. Understand, repeat and repeat. The instructions that you gave yesterday, don't say, how many times do I have to tell you this? Please be patient with them and repeat and teach them. And the other things and many other things that you talked about. And then we also had Professor also, who also gave us a whole buffet of wisdom. He told us that what are the things that these children can learn from home that they are not learning, that they may not be able to learn from school. What are the things that you can teach them? Teach them about confidence. Teach them how to relate. Discipline them, because you cannot just hand over this responsibility to the teachers. Be very deliberate as you teach them on the things that you want to them. Teach them table manners. Teach them how to read. Teach them courtesy. Teach them timekeeping. Let them be okay with both yes and no. Let them learn how to manage disappointment, because life is not about the yes all the time. Sometimes things may not happen the way we expect them. How do they handle that? Teach them, let them not oversleep during the holidays. Let them do house chores. Let them also remember that you quoted Proverbs, and the emphasis Proverbs gives to sleep, how it brings about poverty. Teach them the things that you want them to learn. Spiritual growth, how to read the word of God together, and many things. Friends, it has been a very power-packed session. Of course, not everything can be said in the summary, but thank you so much, Professor John. Thank you so much, Dr. Ruth. Thank you so much, Reverend Rukundo, for the wonderful insights that you have given us, pulling from your experience and from your day-to-day activities. Yes, friends, I think I'll allow just for maybe one or two questions because our time is fast spent. But thank you so much. We have been blessed this evening, and we thank God for that. Maybe the thing I wanted to also point out is, and maybe just also leave it out there, is that the children, even when we have taught them, there's the current trend at school which says that the children believe that they cannot report certain things, either to their parents or to their teachers, even when they know they are wrong. Not because they mean anything, but because the movies and the sayings around the school is that when you report, you become a snitch. There's a new word they could use called a snitch. You know, you don't want to be seen as a snitch. And it's something some of them believe in so much. They believe, oh, I cannot report because I'll be known as a snitch, and I'm not a snitch. And they see those things on movies. I ain't no snitch, and they fear to be called that. And yet, some other way for them to get help is by talking to somebody about it. But by talking, they feel they are being snitches. I don't know how we help such people, Reverend Rukundo, as I wait for other comments coming in through the chat. Yes, thank you.
Thank you very, very much. I totally agree with you. We actually found that many young people these days don't want to tell others about what they face because of the kind of stigma it comes with, both at school and at home. I think the generations that we are living with now realize that the adults seem to be in a different generation altogether and tend to not understand. That's why you see sometimes they laugh at us on the phones, they look at us, we don't know the language that is happening. But I think being a friend to your children is very helpful, and being intentional in finding out what they're going through is very helpful as well. You can get to know what's going on by being friendly, being intentional. Those simple questions that you actually ask that lead to other things that you can find out. And if you realize that they're not able to tell you totally, then you may have to need a professional to also help. I know of many young people who have actually been able to confess about drugs, about many of the sexuality issues happening, not to their parents, to actually specialists, counselors, to their pastors, to the people who are not necessarily at home. So if you realize something is there or there's something they don't want to tell you, there's no harm with actually saying, go and visit a counselor, go and visit a professional. One of these days when you take them there, for us, we are professional, we're able to find out. As I play with them, I'm able to find out a little bit. So if you suspect something or you see something going on in the way they relate with you, they don't want to tell you, they're looking like when you come, they keep quiet and they don't want, you also want to say, do I need to really look for someone, spend a day with them? I'm sure Dr. Ruth will recommend very many other counselors, but many of us who are children specialists and are trained as professional counselors, psychologists, are able to give some professional help. And for me, just spending a day with a kid, I can tell whether there's a problem or not. And I've told my story of this little girl whom I felt at home no one knew what's going on, yet this girl actually was having an affair at home at school, just a fellow classmate because of discussion. So sometimes parents, you think the kids are nice, they're innocent, they don't look like there's anything going on, but just a few things that you may not find out by yourself, you also need to find out through someone else. So if you suspect something, or they're having these years where they are very closed in, their things are all like, Daddy, you don't understand us. There's no harm with you getting a professional to spend a day with them and just be their friend. And in one way or the other, they might even find out something that may be of help to them. So as parents, be on top and continue to find out, be more engaged. And you can be able to sense something is not right. And if you need help, you should seek it. Thank you.
Wow, seek professional help. I think that is a key takeaway for us, that we should seek professional help. God has given wisdom to different people. We can't know it all. There are people who have been taught and are equipped and skilled enough to bring out certain things that we may not be able to do in our capacity as parents. Thank you so much. We just got many thank yous in the chat. Thank you, Dr. Ruth. Thank you, Professor. Thank you, Digital